Okay guys, let's see if I can get this in the frame. Yep, there we go. Okay, today we're going to talk about Knife Sharpening 101. I'm going to talk about rules to keep knives sharp. Whoops. I'm going to talk about how to store knives, and I'm going to talk about cutting boards or cutting blocks. Okay? So, in terms of keeping knives sharp, I'm going to give you a few lists of things that you don't do with knives. Number one, do not put a knife in the sink. What's a sink made out of? Steel and ceramic, right? One or the other, sometimes plastic, but that's usually if you're camping. In any case, don't put a knife in the sink. Why is that? Number one, the ceramic and the steel is going to damage your edge. Number two, if there's another knife in the sink, you may very well wind up beating one knife against the other and making it dull. Number three, you stick your knife in a sink, you're in a sink, and then you reach your hand in there later to grab something and you get cut. Nothing good comes out of putting a knife in the sink. Number two, don't put knives in dishwashers. Why not? I'll give you a couple of good reasons. You see this nice finish right here? This is a horn of some kind, and this is a wooden handle. And when you put these in dishwashers, the wood swells, the horn doesn't, the epoxy breaks, and you wind up with a broken knife handle. Bad plan. Number two, the fitting, and if there's any epoxy inside the handle, you wind up getting swollen wooden products, and they wind up separating, and you wind up with a knife that has no handle at all. Number two, whenever you put a knife in a dishwasher, they always beat around against each other. That's what dishwashers do. You got all that movement going on in there. Bad plans, right? You got dishes in there, now you're beating your knife edges up against dishes. Nothing good comes out of putting your knives, good knives, into a dishwasher. If you've got knives that are like butter knives and stuff like that, hey, whatever, that's your business. If you want to keep your knives sharp, your kitchen knives, your hunting knives, fishing knives, whatever, don't put them in a dishwasher. Why? Because I said so. Next, what you don't do is you don't put knives against ceramic or steel plates to cut on. So people will have a, let's say, a pie dish and a pie. And you stick this nice sharp knife down into your pie and you cut it through, working the blade all the way along on the ceramic plate or a metal plate in some of the older pie dishes. Or maybe you've got a muffin tin, or you've got a baking tin of some kind, and you're putting a nice sharp knife up against steel, and you're going to roll over the edge and dull the blade. So don't use knives good sharp knives to cut on ceramic or steel items. Also, let's say you have your sink full of hot water. You're not going to stick your knife in the sink, right? But let's say you've got a pot with hot water in it. Don't put your knife in the pot with hot water. Why? Because the pot's made out of steel. The water isn't going to be good for your edge, okay? Especially your high carbon blades, you're going to wind up getting a rusted edge very quickly. So don't put knives in water and leave them there. Last but not least on the do not do list is to leave your knives dirty. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you're out hunting or fishing, or you're in the kitchen doing your kitchen chores or cooking, whatever. When you're done with a good sharp knife, rinse it, dry it, put it away. Okay, so we've started off on what you should do with knives. Number two on doing with knives is keep it sharp. It's easier to keep it sharp than it is to get it sharp. Okay, so let me get my knife steel, because that's number three. Now this knife right here has got a pretty dull edge, and you can see when I would show you with my fingers, but then you would just be believing me. But on this one, see, it doesn't want to cut, okay? Now, compare that to this knife. Whoops. It cuts pretty nice, right? So this knife's pretty dull. Put this on the steel, And I'm not one of those fancy chefs. I don't care about going fast and looking sharp. I just want to put my knife on here. Now bear in mind, I'm going to try to show you, your knife is not flat. It's tipped up a little bit, just like when you're sharpening your knife. So on both sides, see, it's not flat. Whoops, there we go. It's tilted out a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. You're not going to sharpen a knife with a steel. What you're going to do is straighten the edge with a steel. That's what you're going to do. So do 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever makes you feel good. And then, let me see. Yeah, I still have a little bit of a dull spot there. That means I'm going to wind up having to take it out and sharpen it up a bit. But notice, whoops, I make myself look bad here. But there we go. Yeah, it's working pretty. It's got a dull area right there. But if you have to use the knife, you don't have time to go out and sharpen it. You got to do your work. Use a steel, get it tuned up a little bit, and then after you're done, go out and sharpen your knife. Okay, so keep it sharp. Don't get it sharp, keep it sharp. Use a knife steel when you're working. When you're done with the knife, put it on a steel before you put it away. And when you put it away, rinse it, dry it, put it in a block. Now, when you start storing knives, we talked about, that's the number 2 on here. Notice that my knives are being held sideways. These blocks are made to hold sharp knives in a way that you're not running the knife edge back and forth on the wood. Instead, it's being held sideways, okay? So all of the knives on a good chopping block should be held sideways. If your knife blades are held up and down, when you put them in, see how the knife edge is down? Bad plan, right? Put the knife edge up, put it in the holder, and now you're not running the knife edge. I don't know who put these away. It wasn't me. You know what? It might have been me. Whoop, that one was up. Okay, well anyway, don't put your knives, now they're all right. Don't put your knives in downside. Put your knives in edge up. Okay, last but not least, cutting blocks. Okay, so I know a lot of people like to use plastic. My wife is one of them. I don't like plastic. With plastic, you wind up putting a slice in the plastic, and then the slice stays there, right? It stays open because it's plastic. It doesn't move. So you get food in there, and even if you put it in the dishwasher, it doesn't necessarily get all of the food out of the bottom of the slice. So then you want to dry it and put it away, and then the food rots in the plastic cutting board. On a wood cutting board, in this case it's bamboo, but on end grain cutting boards like Eastern hard maple, you make a slice, and when you wipe it out, scrub it out with your brush, it gets down in there, but when you wash it, the moisture closes those V-gaps. They actually close up on you. So you wind up with a nice surface on your cutting board every time you go after it, okay? End grain Eastern hard maple is your best. That's the number 1 in my opinion. So, to tell you what I told you, we talked about how to keep knives sharp. Don't put it in a sink, don't put it in a dishwasher, don't use it on ceramics and steel, don't leave it sit in water, and don't leave it dirty. We talked about what you should do. Rinse it, dry it, put it away. Now, not later. Keep it sharp, don't get it sharp. Use a steel before and after. Storing your knives, use a wooden block. Oh, I forgot to show you the Kydex. See, that's why I do that. It's for me, not for you. Kydex is a pretty good. You can use a blow dryer. Just buy a piece of Kydex, use a blow dryer, heat it up, and you have a nice, safe place to put your knife. Keeps the knife safe when it's in a drawer, but it also prevents it from getting knocked up against other items and then dulling the blade. So that's a good way. You may not have Kydex. Maybe you have some cardboard. You can use cardboard. Just use some duct tape, fold it up, use duct tape around it, and slide it in and out. When it gets worn out, throw it away, make another one. Sometimes people use magnets, and I do it also, and it's underneath a cabinet, and you just lift it up, and it gets the magnet catches it in 2 spots, and it holds it up, and when you want it, you just bring it down. If you're not careful, you'll wind up getting your edge on the magnet, which will dull your edge. So start off with the spine of the knife and then, get it up there and then roll it on. That keeps it from getting dull when you're using a magnet. Okay? And then we talked about cutting blocks. We talked about wood. The end grain on Eastern hard maple is the best. Plastic, why I don't use plastic at all, and then bamboo. I'm sure there's others, but this isn't an exhaustive list. Okay? Thanks very much.